Hey there. Welcome to day 1783 of What You Up To Now. Documenting the journey, primarily the online journey, but a little bit of the off and online journey as I transition from the brick and mortar corporate world of business to the online world of business. Spent over a quarter century in corporate America while simultaneously running and operating and growing and building and supersizing in some instances businesses in, at least 27 different industries offline, personally involved in as a primary or an owner. And since then, coming online, I've helped literally hundreds and hundreds of business owners to grow and build and supersize their businesses. Just for, mostly it started out for the fun of it. But when I came online, like so many other things, and I did way less of this offline. I think the internet has made it really easy for us to get distracted, and something called shiny object syndrome, which I'd really never heard about until coming online. I'd also never heard of FOMO, the fear of missing out. I'm pulling out of my cup because I want to drink a little more coffee. But it's very hot. So every day I share a couple pieces of content. See, I got the Grinch here with me. I can't figure out how to get the topper on the tree, so I'm got to work on that a little bit. But today the annual challenge. I'm doing an annual challenge. We only have 20 days left in the year. That just kind of is blowing me away today. But for the month of December, every month we focus on, for the first 9 months of the year, a major area and aspect of our life. And we went through a structured way of dealing with the month, a little bit randomized, but a structured way of dealing with the month. We covered some of the same things every month so we could make sure physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, with respect to our relationships, communication, confidence, and contribution, we were covering all the bases, because the purpose of this year's challenge is to do at least one thing every day that helps us to become a better version of ourselves, that moves us toward what it is we truly want to be in, and how we want to show up in the world. So this month, I'm just asking 2 questions every day. We've done a lot of heavy lifting and a lot of heavy work on ourselves this year. So I thought, I'm traveling. It's a busy time of year for the vast majority of us. Let's just pick 2 questions a day. And I went through and I set up the whole month. I did that as I'm traveling. I had a bunch of lists of questions and I just divvied them up. And I picked one kind of serious question every day, and then one kind of a rhetorical, frivolous, in some cases ridiculous question. And then I left the second question, not the ridiculous part of it, but just the second question, for about the last 5 days of the year. And I haven't come up with those questions yet, but I will know what they're supposed to be before I get to each of those last 5 days of the year, because I do the same things personally at the end of every year and the beginning of the new year. And so I want to share some of those things and the lessons I've learned and why I do those things as part of this challenge, the challenge, not this, but the challenge. This is just my journey. That's why I'm asking just 2 questions a day. And I'm tying, and I've done this all year to make my life easier, perfectly transparent and honest here. I decided that at the beginning of the year, for my Supersize Your Business, primarily for female entrepreneurs, but for other entrepreneurs and business owners as well, we talk about a business-related idiom every day. And I actually started it a couple years ago as I was getting ready to move out of my home following my divorce. I had a very large house and a whole lot of stuff. I tend to be a pack rat. I come by it naturally. You can see this is a corner of my mom's home, and hereditarily, my mom and dad were both very big collectors of things. And so I learned that I like to collect things and save things too. So I had a big project, and it was a big project. I was living by myself. And the kids were out of the house. So it was a huge project, a huge undertaking. And I needed a way to create content easily and quickly. And as I was cleaning, I found a book of 600 idioms that had been my children's. I'd gotten it for them when they were probably in junior high. It was 600 idioms, what they mean and where they come from. And I thought, I can do this for about 30 days while I clean up and pack up my house. Well, lo and behold, it took me several months to clean up and pack up my house and move. So I ended up doing almost all the idioms in that book. Not originally, but I would go randomly through and pick an idiom, and then I would tie it to business and growing and building our businesses. What does it have to do with that? And then when I moved into the new place, it was a whole lot more work. And so I just kept doing the idiom thing. And I think we're probably 3 years into me doing an idiom every day in the Supersize Your Business group. And this year I decided, excuse me, instead of having different themes and random topics, I would tie it to this year's annual challenge. So when we talked about physical well-being and physical health in the month of January, I found a bunch of idioms with respect to our physical well-being and health, and I tied those to business. And then I did the same thing for the other areas and aspects of our life. And this month, the last few months, we haven't done that. I did No Nonsense November, just sharing pieces of advice and lessons I'd learned, some of the biggest lessons I've learned with respect to becoming a better version of myself. And I didn't realize I was picking lessons that about becoming a better version of myself, but that's actually what it ended up being. I've done more general No Nonsense Novembers before, but this one was not purposely, but I guess intentionally, excuse me, more along the lines of the challenge: personal development, personal growth, being yourself, being authentic, Then this month, as I'm asking a question, I try to come up with an idiom that goes right along with the question that or one of the questions that I'm asking in the challenge group today. So today was all about and this has gone all around the internet, what advice would you give your younger self? And I've answered a lot of those over the years. And I find that since 2010, my answer is be you, be yourself, and be true to who you are, because that was the biggest lesson I learned out of my sudden cardiac arrest. Was it was a huge wake-up call to tell me, hey, you're doing all these things and you've been doing all these things and you're working yourself to death and stressing yourself to death literally, because you are not on the right road for you. You need to get on the right path for you and be true to yourself and do what feels right to you, not what other people say, because a lot of times other people are telling you to do something they're not doing themselves. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned out of that sudden cardiac arrest event. So today for the Supersize Your Business group, I just shared a handful plus of advice related idioms. And then I found some articles online, of course, because it's fun to research everything in the world online these days, because it's so fast and easy. And now there's a new tool called ChatGPT where you can ask your question and an artificial intelligence will answer your question. And of course, the questions I'm asking are pretty funny, and it gives me a lot of, well, that depends, because it's not designed to answer philosophical questions. It doesn't have the ability to answer based on experience and human experience, because it's not a human, right? It just scours the internet for answers to questions. So I'm twisting, and I'm doing it on purpose. I'm testing the tool to see how valuable it is with respect to certain types of queries and questions. So I've had fun doing that. But I went just to Google and found several articles about 50 pieces of advice you'd give your younger self, 20 pieces of advice, 13 best pieces of advice, things like that. And I just compiled a quick list and I shared those today for the idiom, instead of just going deep into one specific idiom, because I think we've covered all the ones that popped up before, at least maybe not this year, but in the last couple of years for sure. So even though there's 20 million idioms in the English language alone, I've only covered a couple thousand, and I feel like I'm running out of them and repeating them. So that reminds me, I need to come up with next year's annual challenge. I have not done that yet, and there's only 20 days left in the year. Probably shouldn't admit I don't have that yet, but I'll have it before the end of the year, because I always do. It's usually something just like this year's challenge that it feels like it's the right next step for me. And that's how I decide, right? That's how I decide what my personal annual challenge is going to be, what it's going to have been for the last decade or so. And that's, now that I'm sharing it with other people, that's how I decide what the next one's going to be. It's like, okay, what is the next right step for me? What is the next big area of my life that I want to focus on? And I may very well do what I did last year and just the BU 365-day challenge, and go through and maybe tweak and change and move some things around, like the order that I do the different areas and aspects of our lives in. Or maybe I'll do something different the first month of the year and then dive into the 9 areas and aspects of my life that I structure and the framework I use nowadays. Maybe I'll mix that up a little bit. I haven't decided yet, but I will know when it's absolutely positively right and the right move. I will say I do sometime next year, I don't know when, but sometime next year, I need to have heart surgery. So my daily content might be interrupted, or I might have to have somebody fill in for me for I don't know how long it's going to take. But I do have to have heart surgery, so gotta take care of the ticker. Anyway, if I can help you in any way, if you've got any questions, if you'd like to share the biggest piece, you can only share one biggest piece of advice. Now, I don't like to make rules, so I'm not making a rule. If you've got like a couple, share them. But I try to make myself, okay, only one. The question asks for one, I'm only going to give one. So mine is be you. What's yours? If you could only share one piece of advice with your kids or your grandkids or your best friend or your mom or your dad, what would that one piece of advice be? I'm really curious because it used to be hard for me to say just one thing, especially when it comes to helping people build and grow their business, because I've done so much of that I got lots of lessons learned and lots of advice to share. But it's about what is the one most important piece of advice for that person. It's not about our experience, but what's the thing that they need the most? What's the thing that you need the most? All right, that's all I've got. Have an awesome day, and I will, of course, be with you tomorrow. Bye.